We interviewed Elliot J. on May 14th, 2019. He is a retired dentist who was born in Jersey City, New Jersey in 1933 and lived in Ridgewood, New Jersey, where he had a practice.
What does the Cold War mean to you?
What does the Cold War mean to me? It's hostility between two nations, propaganda, a lot of back and forth, anything short of actual hostility, war. So you're talking, when they mention the Cold War, it's basically the period between 1945, when the World War II ended, and about 1990.
When you were a child, did you hear people talking about nuclear weapons?
Nuclear weapons, when I was a child, we didn't have them. I was a child from 33 until whenever childhood ends.
How were the general people feeling about these weapons?
Scared. When Japan was bombed and it ended the Second World War, everybody was very fearful that other countries were going to get the atomic bomb, and that's the end of the world. But fortunately, it did not happen, but the atomic bomb still played a large part in who the good guys, who are the bad guys.
When you were a child, did you understand who the enemy was?
Who the enemy was?
Yeah.
Yes, but this goes back to World War II. Germany was the enemy, and Japan was the enemy. And the Cold War basically started when these two countries were defeated.
Did your school have air raid drills during this era?
Yes, as a matter of fact.
What were some of the procedures?
Basically, putting the head down on the desk and not panicking, and fortunately, we never had to use it.
When you were younger, did you ever hear about or see a bomb shelter?
No.
Were you ever afraid of nuclear weapons?
I think everybody has had to be at one time.
Describe someone you admire during this period.
Comes to mind President Kennedy, Truman, Eisenhower.
Why? Why did you admire them?
They happen to be great people, good politicians, capable of dealing with the procedures that came up. And unfortunately, with Kennedy, he never had a chance to really show himself. He was assassinated. So there was just a 3-year period that he served.
What do you remember watching on television, hearing on the radio, or seeing in movies that were related to the Cold War?
Trying to think. The start of the Cold War, or basically any time
Just
during...
any part of it.
Well, there was always something about atomic weapons. When you talk about Cold War, it's two countries hassling each other. Anything short of out and out warfare.
So, When you went to the movies, did you see anything like related to the Cold War?
Yes, when I went to the movies, believe it or not, it was 9 cents to spend for a whole Saturday afternoon. And part of it, there was always a newsreel showing what was happening in the world, and then the Frankenstein movie came on.
What do you remember thinking or hearing about communism?
Big topic. Probably one of the worst things that happened was, are you familiar with Joe McCarthy? He power grabbed people and actually ruined them because he claimed that he had these people had communist backgrounds, and he turned out to be a very evil person, and unfortunately ruined a lot of lives that otherwise would still be around.
How do you remember feeling about it as like a child?
Feeling about what?
Communism.
I didn't know that much about communism. As I grew older, I learned, and there are communists and capitalists. I was brought up in a capitalist country, and communism was verboten.
Are there any historical events that you specifically remember from the Cold War?
Well, you had the Korean War. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
You had the Vietnam, which ostensibly we were just advisors, but it turned out to be a very bad scene.
What is one lesson that we should learn from the Cold War?
That's a biggie. One lesson, I would say keep your cool and keep the nuclear weapons away.
Are there any types of songs / music that reminds you of the Cold War? Why this song / music?
Any songs? Well, the Beatles came into play. Elvis Presley came in. This was all during the Cold War. You had the big band era like Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman.
What was the first time you remember hearing about the Soviet Union or the USSR and its conflict with the United States?
When was the first time? I guess 1948, 49. I was 12 at the time, but supposedly the communists were the bad guys and we were the good guys.
But do you remember like hearing about the Soviet Union or the USSR?
When?
Just like during the Cold War, like when you were a child or a teenager in that area.
As a teenager, this Soviet Union was very much with us. They were supposed, labeled the enemy, and throughout my childhood and growing up into adulthood, they were always a factor.
What aspects of the space race do you remember? What did it mean to you?
Well, let's see. It started off, I guess, the Soviet Union were the first to get a space satellite. And then the United States decided to take them on, and President Kennedy said the United States is going to be on the moon within 10 years, and they made it.
Do you remember the Berlin Wall coming down? How did it make you feel?
When it went down, I thought, okay, there's a thaw in the Cold War. Now people, it was originally built to keep Berlin divided, and when it went down, I thought, gee, maybe there's hope that the two countries are coming together. Which, yes and no, it certainly changed things.
How did it make you feel? Like, what was the overall vibe that everyone got from it?
You're still talking Berlin Wall?
Yes.
How did it make me feel? I guess good. It was, when you say there was no war, we're in an oral war with the Soviet Union, and getting that wall taken down was a plus for our side.
So how have your feelings about that era changed since 1989 when the Berlin Wall came down to now?
How did it change? Wow, that's a biggie. I don't know if it's changed that much. It shifted the emphasis away from this, how shall I describe it, impediment to the countries getting together. I was happy to see the wall go down because that meant that East Berlin and West Berlin can travel. They couldn't see each other before that.
So you lived in New Jersey, correct?
Pardon?
You lived in New Jersey? Correct?
Yes.
So what did you do in Germany for the 2 years that you were there?
For the 2 years that I was there, I was in the dental corps. I went to college and dental school from 1953 to 57, and then I spent 2 years in the Army in Germany.
So you were in Germany for the Army?
Yes. In the dental corps.
In the dental corps. So what did you specifically do in the Army?
What did I do? Trained, played war games in case there was a war, learned how to practice dentistry in the field. I remember we had this unit that was, it basically looked like a travel trunk, but when it opened up, there was a whole dental unit in there, which you could practice under a tent.
Did you ever want to be deployed in the Army?
Pardon?
Did you ever want to be deployed in the Army?
Did I ever want to be deployed? I'd rather not be.
Overall, like, where did you mainly work as a dentist? Where did you mainly work? Like, what area of the country? Like, did you, like, work?
I settled in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and opened up a practice just for children. I was a pediatric dentist.
What are some of your hobbies?
I was an avid skier until I got Parkinson's disease. I read quite a bit now, but I'd rather be skiing.
Yeah.
What do you consider your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment, I guess, is bringing up 3 children that turned out to be terrific.
It's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, seriously.
Who are the most important people in your family?
The important people in obviously my wife will be married 60 years, which is a long time. My kids, my grandchildren, have one that's graduating Dartmouth and going to med school, another one going to Princeton, and fortunately I'm not paying for it.
That is pretty impressive.
Oh, wow.